according to the hard drive. Backup plan.
All right, we are live. Welcome to Live Coding Happy Hour for March 3rd, 2017. We are continuing our saga of technical issues this week. We have an entirely new streaming setup, and I think we're actually live now. So
we are. I got the email.
Good. So my name is Josh Nerius. I'm a developer evangelist here at ServiceNow in the developer program. Go to developer.servicenow.com for training and documentation on APIs. And of course, what everybody wants, those free personal developer instances. And with me today is...
I'm Chuck Tomasi, platform architect at ServiceNow. I work in the platform practices team where I do POVs and evangelism and enablement and all kinds of other fun stuff that I can't believe they pay me for this stuff, but I'm not returning any of the money, to borrow a line from Dave. Dave's not here, man. You better explain that.
I know. Yeah, Dave couldn't be with us today. He is on a plane, actually one of probably several planes on his way to India. He's going out to India for the developer days happening next week on Tuesday and Thursday in Hyderabad and Bangalore. So best of luck and safe travels to you, Dave. Wish you could be here with us.
Safe travels.
Yeah, absolutely. So Live Coding Happy Hour is a time we get on screen and we spend some time coding in ServiceNow. So if you haven't seen this before, this isn't a demo. This is unscripted. We try to hack on some things that we haven't done before and learn about the process along the way. So it's not guaranteed to work. And sometimes we like it that way because we get to show you how we figure it out. So hopefully we're good to go, and let us know if you see any issues with the stream throughout this. Just drop us a line in the chat. Hopefully our setup this week is better, aside from our little inability to actually start at the correct time. But
nobody saw that.
Yeah, nobody saw that at all. But this is, of course, happy hour. So Chuck, what are you drinking this week?
I have Bell's Winter White Ale from Comstock, Michigan. It is winter there, so this is, makes sense, even though I'm in sunny Phoenix, Arizona. But works for me. I like a winter wheat ale.
Sounds delicious.
How about
you? I have a I'm not actually even sure if I'm allowed to show this on the screen. It's a little weird it's a Snaggletooth bandana from Solemn Oath Brewery here in Naperville. Well, not here in Naperville, outside of Chicago in Naperville. It's an IPA. So we'll see how this goes.
Why wouldn't you be able to show that?
It just looks a little demonic. It looks kind of weird.
Oh, I see. Oh, then none of the Stone Brewery stuff would work for us, would it?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Dragons and gargoyles and demons and things.
Yeah, this looks like it would probably offend some people, myself included.
Okay. Well, I mean, is there profanity on it, like nudity or flying the bird or anything? Okay.
Just some symbolism.
Go Google it.
We'll leave it at that.
Okay.
The Snaggletooth bandana. Anyway, but that's not the point of today. Well, it's part of the point, but not the entire point.
No.
The first thing we're going to do is get into our API of the week. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. This is something we've started doing. We want to call attention to APIs that we think people either aren't aware of or maybe they're new. So in this case, I want to highlight some things that are new in the Istanbul release that we think you will find useful. So let's go ahead and share that out.
Mm-hmm.
You able to see that?
No, I'm still looking at your camera. Oh, wait.
I might need to turn my camera
off. I might have
up.
to click this screen, API reference, server-side scoped. There we go.
There we go. So the API of the week this week is a combination of two things. It's the Glide scriptable input stream, which is a little bit of a mouthful, as well as this thing called the Glide text reader. Glide scriptable input stream by itself doesn't do anything. You can't go and make one of these. You can't instantiate one of these, but you can actually get one of these from a sys attachment. Now, this came out in Istanbul. What's interesting about this is that this allows you to interact with attachments that previously maybe would have been too large to load into memory. So if you've ever had a file and you've tried to load it up and do some kind of processing, once you hit that 5 megabit or 5 megabyte limit, it just chokes. You can't continue working through it. So this is the API reference for that. Here's the Glide text reader, and what I want to show you is just a very quick tour of how it actually works and how to use it. So this will go pretty quickly. So I've got two attachments. One has 500 lines in it. These are CSVs. It's a consumer complaint database that I took off of some government data set somewhere. and then one with 50,000 lines. And the first one is 88K. The other one is over 14 megabytes.
Mm-hmm.
So in our first example, I can run some
That's
code.
lovely. I love that.
So I'm going to copy in two sysids. Whoa, that's not what I wanted. There we go.
It's live coding happy hour, people.
Like, I do not want that thing. So I've got two sysids. These are representing the attachments. And typically, if we wanted to get the contents, we would do something like this. So we get our glide record. And for the sys attachment table.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a reference to that. And then we would get glide sys attachment. And we can get the content of that attachment by saying var content equals gsa.get content. And then we pass in the attachment that we just instantiated. So this is going to give us the content from that attachment. And if I debug this, this will give me. So let me do this.
Would it be an object? What?
So get content is actually going to take the content of the attachment and give it to us in a string form.
Oh, that's an interesting content. Doing the pipe thing. Neat. Okay.
Yeah. So this went out there and it does what I wanted it to. It actually read the CSV file in, and I could process this. I could split these things apart and throw them into a table or whatever the case. Now, as soon as I try this with the other one, I'll just copy in the CSV 50,000.
It's gonna go kaboom.
It failed. It's dead. It can't load it. It's too big. So this is where the new method comes into play. So what this looks like is first we want to get a stream, and so we can save our stream. Actually, first we want to get a glide sys attachment. So so we still need a reference to that. We'll say stream equals gsa dot get content stream, and then we pass in the sysid. So we'll pass in the CSV 500. Then we get a reader. And this is going to be new glide text reader. We're going to pass in the stream. And a stream allows us to interact with large files without loading the entire thing into memory. It progressively feeds information. So we've got that. Now we're going to keep track of a line. And now we'll do a line and a count you'll see why in a moment. And now what I can do is I can say while line equals reader.readline. gs.debug the line. So what this is doing is it's getting a reader, it's iterating over every line in the file, and it's going to just write that out. So I'll go ahead and click run script, and there we go. So I've got that. That's on the 500. Now, to make this work with the 50,000 version, if I actually were to print all of that out, it would most likely crash my browser. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if count is less than 100, then I'm going to gs.debug the line.
And
I'm going to say, yep, count plus plus. And then finally, at the end, I'll say gs.debug. We're going to say that we read count lines. So we'll see what happens here. And then let's update this so that we're reading the 50,000 instead. So we click that, and I have an error. I missed a parentheses somewhere. Where did that go? While line equals count plus plus.
I missed that. Where was the error?
Missing parentheses after the argument list on line 18. Oh, that's where. Sorry.
You have a plus. Missing a plus.
Yep.
I do that all the time.
Yep. Me too.
Or I fall back into some old programming language and start putting commas in for whatever reason.
Yes, absolutely. I do that so often it's not even funny. So, what I need to do here is I need to initialize count to 0.
That would help.
So that would help. So there we go. We actually read that successfully, and then we stopped printing them out, but we can see that we read 58,000 lines. This would have been absolutely impossible before. This took less than a half second to run. We actually processed a 14 megabyte file, all using Glide text reader. So this, I think, is really, really huge. We've had conversations over in the SNDev Slack a lot of times about how do you deal with these large payloads, and this is going to let you do that. So exciting stuff. The other thing to be aware of, I'm not going to get into these today because I want to let Chuck start working on his stuff here, but you can also interact with Glide Digest to do things like get a MD5 hash. You can also use this with XML Document 2 to process large XML payloads. So that is this week's API of the week.
Very cool. Thank you very much. Let me see if I can get the cameras back on track here. I'm going to go to camera 4. Oh, look at that. That worked splendidly. Camera 4 is actually my desktop.
And I just realized I see the preview over on my other screen that I'm down there looking off awkwardly into the side.
Right, and I happen to awkwardly be looking in the right direction because my screen is up there.
Let's stop sharing my screen here.
Bit of a Brady Bunch moment there. Well, you're not going to be on screen at the moment, so you don't need to worry about that. It is full screen, just me. And that's kind of cool that the little icon doesn't show up in the wrong place. Good. We were battling with some stuff earlier today as a test. We did try to test this. Okay, here's my story, and I'm sticking with it. Let me just adjust my microphone ever so slightly so that I can talk and type at the same time. I wrote a nice Service Portal app that is made up of multiple pages, multiple widgets to process stuff. It goes out and gets some text, and it parses it up, and we've done bits and pieces of this. The back-end logic on Live Coding Happy Hour in the past. The issue I have right now is that I need to add some sort of status indicator to say I'm busy. This is most commonly done with a spinner. For example, I'm going to add a page. This is my emulated mobile interface right here. I'm not going to show you the actual thing, but I pick a date, and it goes out and gathers some information from a website. But I had no evidence that it was doing anything until the pencil icon comes up and says, okay, I'm done. And if I do hit the pencil icon, and there's some buttons down here for like regenerate, which happens pretty quickly, save, which I'm not sure if it happened or not, because there's no, that's where a spinner would come in nicely, and a publish feature where I can push this out to Google Calendar. Thank you very much, Live Coding Happy Hour, for showing me all the OAuth stuff, and Josh for bailing me out a couple of times on that. So we have lots of references in here. What I want to build is a spinner that can be placed on multiple pages and multiple times. So it's not just one thing on a page that I turn it on and off. I want a widget that I can place on that page or multiple pages and signal it. And this is done with either the $broadcast method or the $emit method. And then the widget is listening with the $on. Now, I've read some of both, and it looks like $broadcast is preferred in this case, and I can't really give you the exact reasons why, because I'm not that smart yet. I'm sure somebody who's better at AngularJS can do that. And Josh, do you know the difference between $emit and $broadcast?
I don't. That's my Angular knowledge is there's some things that I know, and that is not one of them.
Whenever I am in doubt, I usually go to the AngularJS docs and say, tell me about $emit or $timeout or $this or $that. And docs.angularjs.org has been my friend a lot. Now, there is some stuff on Stack Overflow, which is also my friend, that can tell you about emit and on and that. And I read them at one time, but I frankly forgot them at this point. So I'm going to go ahead with what I think is hopefully an appropriate solution that we're going to build. So let's start by going into the Service Portal configuration screen. We'll go to Widget Editor, and I have various, the app is called On This Day. So anytime you see OTD, that's what it stands for. I would...
yeah. Chuck, sorry. I'm actually not, I can't see your screen on my side. We can see it on the YouTube side.
Oh, really?
But I am not seeing it within that Skype thing.
Is interesting. Let me go to Skype and do a conversation. Right. Share screen. That's what I need to do to get you in the picture. Okay.
There we go.
Now thank you. You're going to check my typos for me.
they're much better. And then one comment too is that on the chat we have Jay says that broadcast goes down, emit goes up.
Broadcast goes down from root scope to subscopes, I'm thinking, and emit goes
down through the child controllers, and then emit goes up through the compare.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
so that makes sense.
Thank you. I love this group. Learn something.
That's why
every
we
day.
do this.
Absolutely. Okay, so first thing I want to do is make the widget that I'm going to put on the pages. I will call this, for lack of imagination, OTD Spinner. And I don't need a test page because I'm going to put it on existing pages. And first thing I need to know is, how do you actually make one of those little icons spin? So I'm going to look. I either use two types of fonts when I do this, Font Awesome or Glyphs. And I'm pretty sure Font Awesome has an example that I can use.
I love Font Awesome.
Font Awesome is fun. It really is a lot of fun. And W3 Schools, which I constantly use for many, many things. We can do the Font Awesome Circle O Notch, Cog, Gear, Refresh, Spinner. Spinner looks kind of like a corporate logo. I don't know exactly why that reminds me of that, but maybe it's an old movie or something.
Kind of telecommunication-y looking. It's
it is.
yeah, it's weird.
It is kind of. The arrows, the refresh. Well, I'm not really refreshing on this screen, so and it looks like it's being recycled. I'm going to stick with Circle O Notch, which I don't know, for some reason reminds me of a ranch in Wyoming that teaches programming. Come on up to the Circle O Notch.
I'm sure that's a real thing. If it's not, you might have to get on that, Chuck.
So you can see that when you declare a font, you give it a class, and you tell it which one you want, the Font Awesome Circle O Notch, and give it a size. And down here where it's spinning, you just say FA Spin. And if I remember right, there was also a way to increase the size with like FA2X. Let's refresh that. And that didn't work. Oh, because the style is in there. The style is doing it for me. Take that out. Watch the difference. Bing.
The evil
See
hard
how that
code
got
style.
bigger?
Oh, nice.
You can adjust things on a relative size, kind of like H1 through H3. So what I want is the FA Circle O Notch FA Spin. So let's put that in just to see what happens. And it goes in, for whatever reason, it goes in this italics tag, which I think is just kind of interesting. Let's copy that.
Yeah, I've noticed that with a lot of, I think all the Font Awesome stuff is like that, if I remember correctly.
Let's do 2x and save it. We got to put that on a page somewhere, don't we? So let's go back to
I suppose we do.
Designer. And yeah.
Can you preview it?
I can preview the widget. I don't know if I turned preview on in this particular one.
I think you can do it from the hamburger.
Enable preview. Looky. We have a cookie.
Okay.
So
Beautiful.
it's static right now. It's not turning on or it's not turning off, but I can put a spinner. I validated. Hey, yep, that's a font. Yep, there it is. And I want to look at the what was it? I'm going to go to the I believe it's the output page and also the new page, which is this page. So I have two different pages in here. Let's put that on the new page. So when I'm creating a new event, somewhere in here, I now have my spinner. Woohoo. This is where it gets really easy. I can handle this kind of stuff. There it is. Auto saves. I always think you got to save on a page, but you don't. And back to, no, that's the portal. Dang, this is where I always get confused. Trying to go back and getting another page. Designer, page, OTD, and it was the counters. It was the other page. So below my little chickadees here, I want another one. Spin. Let's put that down there. Can I hit that? Did it hit that? I think I missed. Oop.
Oh.
There? No. It's hard with this margin.
Yeah, it could also be because we typically zoom the screen up so much.
Well,
for
that's
these.
true. Let's reduce a little bit. Does that help? Not really. Not really.
Maybe.
But what I could do is put it above.
There you go.
And then move it, right? Because you can move things around right there. There. Now it's on the bottom. And obviously I want that centered. That would look a little better. So I've got the two pages that I want this on with the widget. And if I go back to my good old, for some reason I was after, I was after load the first page to get the subsequent pages. It's working in my little mobile emulator.
Excellent.
So what do you think? A center? I know I'm a little old-fashioned. There's probably a better way to do this with CSS and whatnot, but you can't deny me a good center tag.
I forgot the center tag even exists. I haven't seen that one in a while.
What have you been doing? Like text align?
Well, see, Bootstrap gives you some interesting ways to deal with that, but
there is another way that I have seen, and it's class equals text center. I think that's what you're talking about, right? That's one of those Bootstrap ones.
That might work as well. Is it class equal? Yeah.
It's time to find out.
Ah, there you go.
Refresh.
Oh, maybe not.
Yeah, centered.
Maybe yes.
I reloaded, centered.
Cool,
okay.
Cool.
Now I need to start the communications between these widgets. Turn on, turn off. That's where the magic starts to happen. And in this widget, we don't need server code. We're not doing anything there. And I'm not going to worry about preview because this is not going to help me in preview. But the client script, I need to inject scope. We're going to be playing with scope. And as we mentioned before, broadcast communicates to the other widgets. And that's done via root scope. And you say, well, what's the difference between scope and root scope? There's videos out there, but effectively it's like variable scope in any other programming language. It contains the ability for other things to affect your stuff. That was a very layman's way of saying it. It says, stay out of my sandbox. If root scope is sort of like global variables, and scope are my local variables in rough terms.
And basically, scope in this case is this particular widget, right? So this is only the widget that we're working with now versus this thing that all widgets have access to.
And Service Portal handles and manages, I think we mentioned this before, it handles and manages a lot of those things for you. So you don't have to get too nutsy and boltsy about some of the controllers and bindings. It makes it a lot easier, in my opinion. I can forget about some of the esoteric things of AngularJS. One of the things I cannot forget about, let me make the font a little larger so you can see that. I think I reduced a little while ago. Yeah, we'll do that.
Looks good.
$timeout. I am going to be using $timeout because I wait just a little bit to make sure that my broadcast event is fired, and then I do something. And that's how I got it out of an example. I don't know. I haven't tested without the $timeout, but I've seen other examples use it this way. And I'm one of these guys that I'll do it. I'll hook it up. It may not be the most beautiful way, but until someone tells me better, I'm going to keep using it.
And I think we've got some Angular people in the here, so I think I'll watch for comments over on the YouTube side because we might have some good input.
So the first thing I want to do is make that flag. Should I show the spinner or not? So let's do a variable, show spinner equals false. We'll default it to off until somebody tells me to turn it on. And then I need to be listening for the event. Somebody's going to throw an event. One of those two pages is going to say, hey, turn it on. And the way to listen to that is with the $on. Now there's a $root scope on and there's a $scope on. And this is where we got into the difference between the two. And I did, prior to this, I researched the two on Stack Overflow. And somebody did a very good explanation that says, if you can make this actually work with root scope, $on, oops, not one, darn motor skills, and say, listen for my event. I'm going to call the event show spinner, and you pass it the function. The issue with this is if it gets invoked over and over and over again, you could start having too many listeners, like orphan listeners. So really what I need is this is the only widget that's going to be listening for this. It is your job, Mr. Widget, to be listening for this show spinner event. And if I look at the methodology of this, it's going to be listening for my event name and pass some data. This could be very complex JSON data. It could be very simple. I am going to keep it simple and say true or false. You're on or you're off. You're not, and go forward. So let's just good old debug, throw something in the log that says, I'm in my on method, my $on thing. And show spinner is, I don't know, let's print out what came into this function. I just want to know.
That would make sense. Yeah, just some kind of indicator that something came through, and that way we can figure out what. Okay, I like it.
And then here's where I'm going to turn it on or off. I've got my hands on that data. It's going to be true or false. Again, could be a more complex object if you want. I'm not going to do that. $timeout takes a function as an argument, and I may not need to do this. This is where I start getting suspicious because I've got an example off to my side, so I'm maybe copying bad practices somewhere. And its job is to change the variable, the show spinner, to whatever is in that data variable. Now, you can also say half a second delay. It is in milliseconds. So turn this on a half a second after you receive the event. I don't necessarily need to do that.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Here, let's put that in. Maybe we'll destroy it later and take it out. See what happens without the timeout, because that's what we're here for, right? Now, what is
I'm curious.
This is complaining.
You need to, I think, a closing parentheses for your $on.
There?
Yeah.
There. Okay. Yep, you're right.
Yep.
You're right. Okay. Then my HTML, guess what I get to use to turn this thing on and off?
ngIf.
You got it. I now have a variable that controls the state of the spinner. It's going to be true or false. Sometimes the autocomplete drives me absolutely crazy.
Yeah. And by the way, while you're formatting the code, somebody in the chat asked, how are you auto-formatting that code? Are you doing anything special?
I think Frank Schuster showed me this one. Yeah, the indentation got a little wonky on me. Here, we'll make it purposely unwonky. I mean, purposely wonky. And if you do a Command A on the Mac, select all, whatever your select all key is, and then Shift Tab changes the indentation back.
Shift Tab.
Shift Tab. That works on the script editor too in ServiceNow. So if you're in the middle of a business rule, that'll do it too.
Whoa, that's new information. I did not know that.
Hotkeys. I love them. I use keyboard shortcuts all the time. Excellent question.
I'm used to the normal script editor's got that little button where you can format the thing and all of that, which is kind of what I would have figured. But that's good.
Yep. I said, where's my little formatty thing? Yeah, because you get really tired of going space, down, over, space, down, over. No thanks. So theoretically, this is a fully functioning widget. And if I reload this page, it defaults to off. Now I need that other page to turn it on. And the other page had... Let's go to the new page. I can't remember the name of the widget now. Not the page editor. I do that every time.
You want the widget designer, right? Or
I want the page designer because I can't remember the name of this. It's TD new page. No, that's the name of the page. What's the name of the widget? I think that is the name of the widget. Okay. So how do you get back to the widget editor, widget designer from here? That's the part I always get confused with. And I guess I could always go.
Just go back to the...
Oh, there. Okay.
Widgets. Okay.
Widgets. Got it. So OTD new page is doing two things. Actually, one thing. It displays a calendar. Here's where I display the calendar. And when you click an icon, it receives an event called create. ng-change does a create. So in this is where I want to turn on the spinner. So I do my HTTP REST post, and when it's successful, it comes back and says, okay, I did it. You win. I'm going to save your sysID for you in the $scope data stuff. So somewhere in here, I need to first say, turn that sucker on, which is where I do a root scope dot $broadcast my event name, and the value. That was going to be that data. So turn this on when this method is when this method function is called. Capiche?
That makes sense. I like it.
It makes sense to me. Let's see if it makes sense to the computer.
I mean, that's what really matters.
That's what we want. And then I also need to obviously turn it off. Now the question is, when do you turn it off? One would think it would go right after your thing is done.
But that won't work, will it?
That won't work. Why not?
Because this is an asynchronous method, and it will, so the code is going to be running, and this thing is already finished executing, so you got to put it in the callback.
Yes, and the callback in this HTTP method is where?
Success.
It's in the success section. So in here is where I need to turn it off. Same thing, root scope, dot, dollar, broadcast, show spinner, false. Pretty easy. Turn it on, turn it off.
Now, one comment, theoretically, if something failed, that spinner will always stay on, right?
Yeah, it will.
Okay.
But you also get I thought I had a message in here somewhere. I was going to do messages at one point, but
so you might want to do a final at some point. So something to think about.
Okay, I've got root scope up here, which is nice. I didn't have to add that because I am using it in here. Got HTTP, not using timeout here. Let's see what happens. Go back to my little Porta designer. I'm going to start from the home. And I'm going to add a new page. We'll say March 9th. It's on. It's off.
Beautiful.
That was pretty cool.
Take a drink.
I think so. That was easier than I thought. We're going to be done in 10 minutes.
Yeah, this is going too smooth.
It is going too smooth. What's going on?
Let me check the comments. So Jay is our MVP for today. He says timeout helps with race conditions since all widgets can bootstrap and render asynchronously at different times. The timeout delay could still fail because it's arbitrary. So that makes sense. There could be a point where, and the other thing Jay was mentioning is that the .success method is deprecated. It's better to use the .then, which returns a promise. So we were talking about promises a little bit earlier for other reasons. So that might be something that we'll want to explore eventually.
Yeah, it is, because you've got a .success and you've got a .fail. .then seems like it's going to happen anyway. It doesn't have a fork, in my opinion.
So I think .then accepts two methods, and so what'll happen is into .then you pass a success and a failure method, and either of which might be called. So these are the things that we learn as Angular evolves.
Is that an Angular 2 thing, maybe?
I don't believe so, because I know I've seen the .then thing in Angular 1.x. I'm not sure at what point that became deprecated.
Okay.
So, because I definitely have seen .success in a lot of example code out there. So there's definitely some of that hanging around still.
Now, one thing that I may want to consider is we've got var c equals this. That's sort of the generic boilerplate for all widgets when you first start them up, is to do c.showSpinner equals false. Actually, no, wait.
That's not going to work, though, because that's on this widget.
That's on this widget. Not
the
root. It doesn't have visibility to the spinner variable on the other one. Okay. That must be somebody else's goof up from another example. Right, it's working. And we don't necessarily need a timeout here either, do we? To turn it on or off. Okay. We could.
Cool.
Oh, wait. If we wanted to verify that it was off, I mean, we could always do a broadcast and say, hey, shut yourself off. We could do a root broadcast here. A root scope dot broadcast. In case it was left on, like you said, in case it was left on by another widget.
Yeah, I mean, you could either do that or on the other side, you can, or actually, I'm sorry. So instead of a .success, you know what? Let's try. Do you want to try implementing a .then? Because we've got some time.
Sure.
So I think what we can do is instead of your .success, make that a .then. The first argument of .then is going to be your success function, which is this. And you can actually name that function if you want. So you could actually put a space after the function and put success in there. So it says function success. Like it just makes it easier. Yeah, yeah, much easier to understand. And then pass a second function to the .then method and call that failure. I think it's failure. Well, I mean, you can call it whatever you want. It's just that the second method is
like this.
Yep. And then this will execute anytime things don't go well.
Okay, so let's put in sputil add info message. Things did not go well.
Right, right. Now, do you have a reference to sputil right now?
No. Maybe that's why I took it out. But it's just sputil. It's not $sputil.
Right, right. Okay. That makes sense.
That is something that Service Portal provides.
Well.
Okay.
And then we could also turn that thing off.
Force it to turn off. Yep.
Yeah.
Because the first then didn't get run and written. Okay. Yeah.
So theoretically,
which I always cross out and put not really. Let's go back and do one for March 10th. Boink. Hey, we didn't get an error message. I don't know how we could. we could take Wikipedia down, I guess.
you could screw up your URL. You could just put in
No fun. You mean the API URL?
Yeah. Just make it 404.
Okay. Like pages.
There you go.
Okay, let's reload the whole thing from the top. Reload.
And theoretically, we'll get something.
March 11th. Things did not go well. Okay. I should have an error message. Green is just not good for errors.
Yeah, that...
Green feels too happy.
It's like things did not go well with a great grin.
Was it St. Patrick's Day or something?
Can you hear the smile in my voice?
I like it. So that's an interesting way of doing then, is to have two functions, a success function and a failure function. And that keeps it nice and readable. Yeah.
I like it. I definitely like it. And then the other thing that Jay was mentioning is that .then returns a promise. So I don't know. This is where my Angular knowledge, I know enough to make some functional Angular pages, but I don't haven't really dug deeply into this. But I think there's more that you could potentially do to then chain off of that after this thing is done.
Right. I haven't got a handle on what promises do and where they're used either.
To be like that, then do this and then do that, and I kind of like the way the code
chains along. So let's go get our other widget, widgets is the output widget, which has the various faces and methods and those buttons across the bottom to allow us to publish and save, etc., etc. And here are the methods that they use. So one is going to write the record, one is going to get a record, one is going to publish a record. So, and these all use, again, these this one does a scripted a REST table API. This one does a scripted REST API, and this one does a scripted REST API. So this whole app is full of goodness.
Very nice, very nice.
Oh, look, here's an sputil add error message. And these data messages are something that I carry over from the native ServiceNow, kind of like client scripts. They'll preload the message for you. So if you want to see where those are coming from, they are doing simple gs.get messages for these. And you can make your app multilingual simply by going to the System UI messages table and put in whatever is French for saved or published, and it will do your language translation for you, so that I have all of these loaded in memory. Because remember, client script is running on the client. Once you've got your text, you can't go back and get more. So I was thinking ahead and making my little applet or my widget multilingual friendly.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's something that's easy to forget to do. I mean, it's something we drive. We really push in the main UI. Use gs.get message in all your code. So
Yep.
yeah, doing that in Service Portal, I hadn't seen it done this way, so I like it. Is that the way that we typically do that, or do we have any sort of?
I don't know if there's any examples of that or not. I just made it up. It's like, hey, why not? I wanted to make sure that anytime I do an add info message in any interface, it's how am I going to make this multilingual later? And if it's on the server, you can just output it. You do your gs.add error message, and in your text parameter, you do gs.get message. On the client scripts, you can do a get message, but that's sort of part and parcel of loading a ServiceNow page in the native environment. You get things like gform and gscratchpad and a bunch of these methods that come along for free. But I didn't want to assume that in Service Portal, so I just set up a message object that had the keys and value pairs for those messages.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. I'll have to take a note to investigate that a little bit, because I'm curious. You might be pioneering the best practice of how to do messages in Service Portal.
Oh gosh.
Chuck, best practices? Say it ain't so.
No, but at this level of maturity in my Service Portal career, that's what I'm stunned by.
Well, we won't make comments about that.
All right. The 3 buttons across the bottom, as I mentioned, we've got the refresh, we've got the save, and it still cracks me up how a floppy disk icon still represents save when nobody's got floppy disk icons anymore. And I want to tell each one of these, for example, when I publish a record, we're basically going to do the same thing. Turn the thing on and turn it off. Now, this one is not an HTTP. What did we use before? We did a put, didn't we?
Was it a put or a post?
It was a post. You're right. It was a post. I'm looking at my HTTP. Yeah, and this is a little different. See, here we call a method called HTTP get, but before we had $HTTP and went right into it, and we could specify one of the parameters as the first parameter was an object, which set all those things. It says,
and so these are shortcuts.
What's your
basically.
method? What's your URL? What's your headers? I could still do this the other way, but I just wanted to show a couple different ways. We did some HTTP before, but I think most of it was it around scripted REST API, or was it? So this is sort of a mishmash, because later on, not later on. Here's a scripted REST API that does the same thing. For gets, it's real easy. There's a certain amount of defaults that happen. For this one up here, you can see this is the other style. I guess I do have them both on the same widget. Is you can specify the method, the URL, the headers, which is nice for putting or posting. You got to have a payload, and that's where you pass in the data. For get, it comes back in the response. So I don't know, maybe I just gravitate towards the shortcut way for a get. It's kind of like the glide record get method, rather than doing add query.
Right. Now you can do HTTP does have shortcuts for the other methods as well. So you could do an HTTP.get, or I'm sorry, an HTTP.put or a .post.
Okay, and I think I have seen those. I just didn't know how do you specify and ensure that you're getting the right headers out there? Where do you put the payload? Is it a third parameter, or is it an object that you pass as the second parameter? Or maybe it is the first parameter is an object. I haven't looked. This one seems to be just go get me this thing. For a get, it's pretty straightforward. Here's a URL, return.
Yeah, not much you have to worry about there. Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think there are 3 parameters to the data modification calls, and the first one is always the URL. The second one is data, and then the third is everything else. So basically a property or a JavaScript object with a representation of all of the configuration things that you might want to do. So, but I don't think either is wrong. I think it's just a matter of what makes the most sense for what you're doing, and the .get, .put, .post are really just shortcuts. Makes things a little bit semantically clearer too, which is nice.
Okay, smarty pants. I turned the spinner on line 24. Where do I turn it off here?
Oh, boy. So 24.
I need a callback. No, I need the... This is where a then would work, right?
Yeah, so right now you're basically firing and forgetting, right? So you're not doing anything with it. Got it.
So we could do function success. I can spell success. And my response is going to be what I get back. Close it with one of those crazy things. Right? So that everybody's all happy and paired up. Then let's do an SPUtil. Since I was setting up those messages, we might as well use them. Scope, data, message, saved. So if you do your variables right, it almost reads. It's almost self-documenting. And then I'll turn this thing off. Root scope, $broadcast, show spinner, false. Turn it off because there's my new callback. All right. Then down here where we do a get, we'll do the same thing. Turn it on. Make sure we get our Boolean set the right way. True. True. And then we have a get. There's our then. That's kind of odd how it formatted it that way.
Oh, interesting.
Just for glamour's sake. It didn't do anything for me. Rats.
Huh.
It didn't want to auto format that one the same way. So then
I think the then was okay up there.
It was, but it was a little hard to read. It was getting a little wide on the screen.
Yeah.
And it looks like I have a tendency to put my thens in there somewhere. So that then, and then I need to turn it off. False. Because I'm still in the then. Yeah?
Makes sense.
Okay, and I think I got one more when I publish it out to Google Calendar, which I can't test because this instance doesn't have all my OAuth stuff set up, right? Let's do this again. Let's put that there. Yep, this is the exciting part. Okay, turn it on. Before we go out to HTTP land, and turn it off in... I really don't care if I hit the if, the else. If something happened, I just want to turn it off before I get out of here. Seems to be the right thing to do. Okay. I think we're done.
Very cool.
I think. Let's go test it out. So
go
to the home. Let's open up one of these things. And I'll pick a couple of records. Bing, bing, bing. Not that they mean anything to me. I now have 3 of 35 of these selected. Format. Oh, it was there for a sec. Did you see it blip?
It was just so fast.
Yeah, maybe refreshing, but it didn't turn on immediately. It like hesitated, and then it was the duty cycle was like 70% off and 30% on. So let's do a save. Same kind of thing. That seems really
and I think it's going so fast, I don't even know if it's coming through on the share.
Yeah, it's down at the bottom right underneath this floppy disk. I can do it again.
Oh yeah, it's just flash on, flash off.
Yeah, it was dirt fast, and I'm wondering if do
you have a delay that is causing it to not come on immediately, or no, you're broadcasting right away. So well, hang on a second. So in your .on method, when you do your timeout, how long are you waiting?
Good question. Let's go check. Widgets.
Because I wonder if it's taking so long to show up that by the time it's actually there,
it's using half a second. Yeah, maybe we just turn that up. This might be the part where we get rid of the timeout and see what happens. Okay. Open this. Oh, I gotta refresh that. Refresh. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, that was really fast. You know what might make sense?
It could also be because you're on a local instance, you've
I
got
am on a
almost
local
no
instance.
latency.
That's true. If I could publish to Google, it'd probably take a little while longer because it's got to go over the internet and do all its other stuff. All right.
One of those problems that you thought you'd never have. It's too fast.
It's too fast. Yes, save
the
me. It's too
performance
fast.
is too good.
But I think we've accomplished what we were out for. We have a spinner that shows up on multiple pages. We broadcast, turn it on and off. Since this doesn't seem to be actually doing anything, what happens if we take this part out?
Give it a try. That is one thing that I always, when you use examples of code, that's something that I try to understand, like what is going on here.
Did
because
the other person really know what they were doing?
Right. Was it a hack? Did they really need to do the thing?
They stumble across it like I did. Save. Okay, well, it doesn't appear to really be needed for anything. Refresh. It's there. It's gone. Here, I know. Let's go do another new page. That seemed to take a little while longer because I had to go out to Wikipedia. Where were we? On the 11th, 12th, something like that. Things did not go well. Oh, we forgot to fix the widget. Oops. New page. Pages, page, save. Oops. I meant to do that. Okay, we're on the 11th. Reload, refresh, pick a date, the 11th.
Oh, that looked a little bit better.
I think that was fine.
Yeah.
I think that was a beautiful widget, a beautiful spinner. Any changes?
The best spinner.
Anything else we could tweak?
So one thing I noticed is that you're calling rootscope.broadcast. Basically, you have almost the same thing in each of your success functions. So can you refactor that into a method, basically define that method and then pass it in and reuse it so that you only have to define it once?
You're talking about like this, where I've got the same line 3 times?
Yeah, so you're .then, so you're basically your success function is really the same thing each time. The only difference here, I guess, is that you are doing a little bit of other processing.
Yeah, let me get to the other widget because then we can get a clearer picture. This one does throw a message and turn it off. This one does a little bit of logic check to say, when I said to create the page output, the part that actually generates that inside text box, it has to do some processing. You go, how'd you do? Because the scripted REST API is going to pass back an OK or a 200 or something that says, I'm fine, or it really didn't go that well. I had a problem parsing. So that's that logic, and then it turns it off. This then does something similar when it publishes it to Google. It checks the API and then it turns it off. So I don't know that they can really come out. It's sort of like,
yeah.
I may have used the word save twice. We're not going to gain a lot by encapsulating a one-liner function inside a one-liner function.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, I didn't realize how much other processing you were doing there. Okay. So if it was just a matter of, hey, we're gonna, all we're doing is a spinner, we could basically just do that in a repeat way, but not in this case. That makes sense.
We could pull that out into its own function and pass a parameter or two and be done with it and make it more generic. And I thought about that when I still had the generic HTTP stuff going. Is this any different than that? And it really isn't until you get to the then that it starts to show its true colors for each function.
Yeah, got it.
Okay. Now here, I could put, this is where I'm calling the functions based on the action of the click event. So that seemed like a good way to do it for me. And I think I got this from, it might have been Susha's page on the community that had that example of how to click something and make various other widgets interact or pass an action with a parameter. So
very cool.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, I like like where this is going. It's a pretty cool app. And I know we didn't really focus on the app itself, but that's pretty slick.
If you want a quick demo of the app, go to my personal YouTube page. There's a I think it's called On This Day in ServiceNow or something, and just a 93-second video. I play it at like developer meetups and snug meetings just to show what people do or what we can do. I should stop sharing my screen so that you can be on the screen again. That wasn't very nice.
Oh no.
How we often just take the same stop sharing screen, the same processes over and over and over that we've done for years and years, and same old, same old. Why are we doing it? Because that's the way we've always done it. Bring it into ServiceNow, and you can save yourself a lot of time and headaches.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then put Service Portal on the front end, and you can make it beautiful.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So, to recap.
We made widgets talk to each other with broadcast.
That's a good recap. And it's one of those things where it's surprisingly simple, but it's one of those things that is, if you don't know how to do it, it seems like a daunting task.
That's exactly it. It's like, I know what I want to do, but I don't know how to do it. And it's a lot of research to go and find those things to stitch them together, because you'll find it, again, a lot of the reference material on the internet is pure Angular JS centric.
Mm-hmm.
You've got your controllers that you need to worry about and your bindings, and we don't have to worry about a lot of that stuff in Service Portal, but the philosophies are still there. So it's kind of tying the two together.
Good stuff. Well,
how's your beer?
Let's go ahead. The beer is delicious. The Snaggletooth bandana. I'd actually give it a solid 4 stars, which is good for me.
How's the hoppiness?
It's hoppy. I don't know what the IBUs are in this, but it's up there.
This is a good one. This is a very, it says ale, but it's got that nice mild ale taste. Not a lot of hops, as most Belgian inspired wheat ale. So I mean, it's very smooth. Doesn't grab your tonsils and shake them around. But I am noticing, like a really good Belgian wheat ale, there's some sediment on the bottom of my cup.
There you go. Yeah, that's the sign.
I'm almost afraid to drink that. That's where the flavor lives or something.
I think one of the first times I had a Blue Moon that sat in the fridge for a little too long, and I tried to figure out what in the world is going on here. And then I realized it's not filtered, but that was an interesting wake-up call.
Exactly. Any other comments in here? You can still do that as the second parameter. Oh, okay. Those are old comments. I was just quickly reviewing the comments to see if there was anything we missed.
Yeah, I think we're good. So, this has been one of the more smooth happy hours that we've had, aside from our little blips at the beginning. But I mean, from a content standpoint, we just powered through that.
Yep, we made up for lost time. Good to go.
Yeah, we did. We did. So, thank you everyone for joining this week. And if you have any questions, you can always reach us through very many avenues, whether it's the community or on Twitter, or send us an email. It's not hard to figure out our email addresses, and I'm always happy to help.
Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend.
Hope to see Dave back. Are we thinking about doing it next week, next Friday, the 10th?
Dave will be out because I know he will be on his way back. But if you're up for it, Chuck, I certainly am. And actually, I've got stuff to talk about with OAuth that I learned. I always talk about OAuth on here, but there's a whole new category of things, and
let's do it.
Probably, yeah, let's do it. We'll plan on having another OAuth session, OAuth Part 3. We'll talk about using OAuth initiator.do.
I should be back and I should be recovered. I've got the Portland, the Northwest Territory. There's a snug on the 9th in Portland that I'll be at, but I know I'm coming back really stupid late that night. Should be fully recovered by live coding happy hour about 15 hours later, I would think.
Cool. Well,
right.
I look forward to it.
Till then. Yep. Take care.
See y'all.